The luminous dome of the Ares 9 combat station pulsed with energy as the final round of the Apex Warlord tournament approached. 1.5 million spectators from across the Galactic Alliance had gathered in the massive arena, a marvel of engineering that orbited the opulent world of Syrinx Prime. The station's architecture was a testament to the technological prowess of the Alliance. Gleaming metal surfaces adorned with pulsing neon lights in hues of electric blue and crimson that traced intricate patterns across the ceiling and walls. Holographic displays hovered in the air, showing close-ups of the contestants and real-time betting odds that fluctuated with each passing moment. Crystal K, the non-biological commentator, whose crystalline form shimmered under the arena lights, adjusted its vocal synthesizer to address the crowd. Esteemed beings of the Galactic Alliance, we welcome you to the pinnacle of martial excellence, the final combat of the 327th Apex Warlord Tournament. The crowd erupted in a cacophony of sounds, chirps, roars, clicks, and thunderous applause from the myriad species that comprised the audience. In the VIP section, billionaire industrialist Belfier leaned forward in his anti-gravity chair, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence as he whispered to Ambassador Lanthos beside him. "They say the human female is from Dust Frontier. A Deathworlder." Belfier's voice carried a hint of disgust mixed with morbid curiosity. Ambassador Lanthos's facial tentacles curled inward, a sign of skepticism among the Lanthian people. "A maintenance technician. I heard. How she made it this far is beyond comprehension. Likely a statistical anomaly that will be corrected today." Below, in the preparation chambers, Mira Kellen adjusted the simple gray utility jumpsuit that served as her only armor. Unlike the other contestants with their elaborate exoskeletons and neural-enhanced combat suits, Mira wore only what she would for her regular shift maintaining the environmental systems on Dust Frontier's orbital station. Her brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, revealing a face marked by small burn scars and the permanent tan of someone who had spent too much time under a harsh sun. At 32 Earth years, she had the lean, wiry build of someone who had survived where others would perish. A blue-skinned technician approached her, looking nervously at his holoclipboard. "Contestant Kellen, you are aware that refusal to participate at this stage carries an automatic forfeit and significant financial penalties." Mira looked up, her hazel eyes betraying no emotion. "I never said I was refusing." "But your file indicates you've declined all enhancement options and combat gear upgrades. You haven't even selected a single weapon from the tournament arsenal." The technician's voice rose in pitch, clearly stressed by this protocol violation. "I don't need them," Mira said simply, finishing the knot on her bootlace. The technician's skin darkened to a deeper blue, a physiological indication of stress. "You're facing Balor, the 3-time defending champion, the Apex Warlord." Mira stood, stretching her shoulders. "I'm aware of who he is. He's killed 17 opponents in official matches, 3 this tournament alone." A ghost of a smile crossed Mira's face. "Then I suppose the odds are in his favor." The technician left, muttering something about Deathworld lunacy under his breath. Alone again. Mira closed her eyes and thought back to the day 3 months ago when she'd been conscripted into the tournament. A simple bureaucratic error had placed her name in the selection pool when her identification had been temporarily flagged during a routine security scan at a transport hub. By the time the error was discovered, tournament regulations prevented her withdrawal without facing severe penalties that would have bankrupted her and potentially resulted in the loss of her hard-earned position at the Dust Frontier maintenance station. So she had fought and survived, and somehow, against all expectations, including her own, she had continued to advance through the rounds. Now she was here, facing the champion in a match that every predictive algorithm in the galaxy gave her a 0.001% chance of surviving, let alone winning. The overhead speakers crackled. "Contestant Kellen to the staging area. 5 minutes to combat initiation. Mira opened her eyes and walked toward the glowing red exit sign. In the opposite preparation chamber, Warlord, the Apex Warlord, was undergoing his final enhancements. Standing over 2 meters tall, his naturally powerful cerulean physiology had been augmented with the finest combat technology credits could buy. Technicians swarmed around him, making final adjustments to his exoskeleton and checking the power levels on his integrated weapon systems. Neural response is at 127% of baseline, announced one technician, monitoring a holographic display of Balor's nervous system. Plasma cannons charged to maximum capacity, reported another. Targeting systems aligned and primed, added a third. Balor flexed his armored arm, watching as servo motors and artificial muscles rippled beneath the surface. His skin, naturally a pale lavender, had been genetically modified to become a living armor that could withstand temperatures from near absolute zero to over 1,000 degrees Celsius. His eyes, replaced with multi-spectrum ocular implants, glowed with an eerie yellow light. "The human female. Tell me about her again," he demanded, his voice a computerized rumble through his vocal enhancer. His combat manager, a nervous Vexillian with 6 arms, each holding a different datapad, cleared his throat. Mira Kellen, human female from Earth Colony Dust Frontier. Age, 32 standard years. Occupation, environmental systems maintenance technician. No formal combat training, no augmentations, no registered weapons. Balor let out a booming laugh that caused several nearby glasses to vibrate. "And this is my final opponent? The tournament organizers mock me with such an insult. She has survived her previous matches in unusual ways," the manager added cautiously. 3 opponents withdrew after being unable to land a significant blow. 2 others suffered system failures during their attacks. The semi-final opponent, Crixon the Vaporizer, somehow shattered his own exoskeleton when attempting to strike her. Balor waved a massive hand dismissively. "Coincidences and equipment failures. Nothing more. I will give the audience what they came for. A spectacular display of power, followed by the elimination of an unworthy opponent." "As you say, champion," the manager agreed, not mentioning the strange betting patterns that had emerged during the humans' matches, or the disturbing calm she exhibited even when facing certain death. The overhead announcement system chimed. "Champion Balor to the staging area. 5 minutes to combat initiation." In the arena, the atmosphere was electric. The central combat platform, a circular area 50 meters in diameter, rose from the floor, surrounded by energy barriers designed to protect the audience from stray attacks and debris. The platform's surface was made of a specialized alloy that could repair itself between matches, now gleaming under the spotlights as if it had never witnessed the brutal combats of previous rounds. Crystal K's voice resonated throughout the arena once more. "Esteemed beings, the moment approaches. But first, let me acknowledge our distinguished guests. Present today are representatives from all 7 major galactic powers, 3 dozen corporate overlords whose financial backing makes this spectacle possible." And the commentator's voice dropped to a reverential tone. "The supreme arbiter of the Galactic Sports Commission himself." Polite applause followed as various dignitaries were highlighted on the massive screens suspended above the arena. "And now," Crystal K continued, its voice rising dramatically, "it is time to welcome our combatants." The arena darkened, save for a single spotlight focusing on one entrance tunnel. First, our challenger. From the harsh Deathworld colony known as Dust Frontier, a human female with no enhancements, no combat record, and nothing but, apparently, extraordinary luck. I present to you, Mira Kellen. The spotlight illuminated Mira as she walked calmly onto the platform. There was no dramatic entrance, no theatrical posturing. She simply walked to her designated starting position and stood, hands at her sides, eyes forward. The audience's reaction was a mixture of muted applause, confused murmuring, and occasional bursts of derisive laughter. "Is this some kind of joke?" someone called out from the stands. "She's not even armored," another voice exclaimed. Crystal K, ever the professional, continued smoothly. "And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The three-time champion, the undefeated master of combat, the supreme warrior whose name strikes fear into the hearts of challengers throughout the galaxy. I give you Baller, the Apex Warlord." The arena erupted in a spectacular light show. Laser beams crisscrossed the space above the combat platform, forming Balor's insignia, a stylized gauntlet crushing a planet. Pyrotechnics exploded in synchronized patterns as a thunderous entrance anthem, composed specifically for the champion, blasted through the sound system. Clouds of colored smoke billowed from hidden vents, and holographic replays of Balor's most famous victories played on the suspended screens. Through this sensory onslaught emerged Balor himself, his exoskeleton gleaming under the lights, arms raised triumphantly as he soaked in the adoration of the crowd. He stomped around the perimeter of the platform, each step causing a deliberate tremor through the reinforced surface. Integrated speakers in his armor amplified his roar, which reverberated throughout the arena and caused several sensitive-eared species to wince in pain. After a full circuit, he took his position opposite Mira and finally deigned to look at her. Even from across the platform, the dismissive nature of his gaze was evident. "Combatants!" Crystal K's voice cut through the gradually diminishing cheers. "This final match will determine the Apex Warlord of the 327th tournament. Victory is achieved through surrender, incapacitation, or," a dramatic pause, "elimination." The audience hushed at the euphemism for death, then broke into excited murmurs. Death matches were rare in modern tournaments, but technically still permitted under the ancient rules that govern the competition. Standard combat protocols apply. No attacks may be directed at audience members. No outside assistance is permitted. Combat area is restricted to the platform. Crystal K paused again, then added, almost as an afterthought, "May the superior combatant prevail." A countdown appeared on the screens above. 10, 9, 8. In the VIP section, Belfer turned to Ambassador Lanthos. 1,000,000 credits says the human doesn't last 30 seconds. Lanthos's facial tentacles quivered in amusement. "No wager. It would be unethical to take your money on such a certainty." 3, 2, 1. A deafening horn blared, signaling the start of combat. Balor didn't move immediately. Instead, he activated his combat telemetry systems, allowing the audience to see real-time data of his biometrics on the overhead screens. Heart rates, neural activity, power levels, and weapon status all displayed in glowing holographic detail. It was standard practice for champions to do this, a demonstration of confidence and a way to enhance the spectacle for the viewers. Mira stood perfectly still, her eyes fixed on Balor, her breathing slow and measured. "Is the human broken?" someone called out from the audience, triggering a wave of laughter. Balor finally addressed his opponent, his voice amplified for the audience. "I offer you a choice, Deathworlder. Surrender now, and I will ensure your death is quick and relatively painless. Continue this farce, and I will dismantle you piece by piece for the entertainment of our audience." Mira's expression didn't change. "I'm here to complete the match so I can return to my maintenance shift." A ripple of amusement passed through the crowd. The human's practical response was so incongruous with the gravitas of the tournament that it struck many as either supreme confidence or complete delusion. Balor's eyes narrowed, the yellow glow intensifying. "Then let us not delay your journey to oblivion." With blinding speed, he charged across the platform, covering the distance between them in less than 2 seconds. His right arm, enhanced with pneumatic pistons and inertial amplifiers, drew back for a punch that, according to the telemetry displayed overhead, would deliver force equivalent to being hit by a small ground vehicle. Mira didn't move. The impact was thunderous. Balor's fist connected squarely with Mira's chest, the force reverberating through the platform. A collective gasp rose from the audience, followed immediately by confused murmurs. Because Mira was still standing. She hadn't dodged. She hadn't blocked. She had simply absorbed a blow that should have liquefied her internal organs, and she was still on her feet, looking mildly inconvenienced. Balor himself seemed the most shocked. He stared at his fist, then at the human, incomprehension evident even through his mechanical features. "That was rude," Mira said quietly, though her voice was picked up by the arena's audio system and broadcast to the stunned audience. Recovering quickly, Balor growled and launched into a flurry of attacks, punches, kicks, elbow strikes, each enhanced by his exoskeleton to deliver devastating force. The display screens showed his power output increasing with each blow, his systems routing additional energy to his striking limbs. And throughout it all, Mira stood her ground. She didn't attempt to evade. She didn't try to counter. She simply endured, absorbing impacts that should have been impossible for an unenhanced human to survive. After 30 seconds of continuous assault, Balor stepped back, his cooling systems working overtime to disperse the heat generated by his exertions. The audience had fallen into a stunned silence, broken only by the whirring of recording devices as everyone attempted to document the unprecedented spectacle. "Fascinating," Mira said, rolling her shoulders slightly. "Are you finished with the physical portion of your attack?" In the control booth overlooking the arena, the tournament officials were in a state of panic. "What is happening?" demanded the tournament director, a rotund Vexillian whose skin had turned an alarming shade of orange. "Our sensors must be malfunctioning. No unenhanced human could withstand those impacts." The chief technical officer, a Morellian with advanced cybernetic implants, shook her head. "All systems are functioning within normal parameters. The impacts are registering correctly. The human is simply not taking damage as expected." "This is impossible," the director sputtered. "Check her for hidden technology. She must have some kind of advanced shielding." "We've scanned her 17 times since she entered the tournament," the security chief interjected. "No implants, no enhancements, no shielding technology. She's just a standard human from a high-gravity death world." "No standard human can withstand a direct hit from an Apex-class combat exoskeleton," the director insisted. Down in the arena, Balor had moved to Phase 2 of his attack strategy. The panels on his shoulders slid open, revealing compact plasma cannons that hummed as they charged to firing capacity. "Perhaps conventional weapons are insufficient for you, Deathworlder," he snarled, the targeting systems in his eyes, locking onto Mira's vital points. "Let us try something with more heat." Twin beams of superheated plasma shot forth, striking Mira directly in the torso. The temperature at the point of impact exceeded 5,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt through standard military-grade armor. Mira's jumpsuit blackened and burned away where the beams hit, revealing skin beneath that reddened but did not char or melt as expected. She winced slightly, her first visible reaction to any of Balor's attacks. "That was warmer than I prefer," she commented, brushing at the smoldering remnants of her jumpsuit. In the stands, the audience had recovered from their initial shock, and a new energy filled the arena, the electric thrill of witnessing something unprecedented. Betting interfaces throughout the audience seating were lighting up as odds were recalculated and new wagers placed. 2 million credits on the human surviving another 5 minutes, Belfer announced to Ambassador Lanthos, his 6 eyes wide with excitement. 3 million on her surviving the entire match, Lanthos countered, facial tentacles now fully extended in arousal. Balor, sensing the shift in the audience's mood, let out a roar of frustration. The full arsenal of his combat suit deployed, shoulder-mounted micromissiles, wrist-mounted sonic disruptors, knee-mounted gravity pulses, and a chest-mounted particle beam cannon that was technically borderline illegal under tournament regulations, but had been permitted due to his champion status. "Die!" he bellowed, unleashing everything simultaneously. The resulting barrage was a technological storm directed at a single point. Explosions blossomed across Mira's body. Sonic waves distorted the air around her. Gravitational forces attempted to crush her from multiple directions. The particle beam carved a line of superheated air, straight toward her heart. For the first time, Mira moved, but not to dodge. As the attacks converged on her, she took a single step forward, directly into the onslaught. The step was smooth, deliberate, almost casual, as if she were simply crossing a room rather than walking through a maelstrom of advanced weaponry. The attacks connected. The explosion temporarily obscured her from view, and a cheer began to rise from Balor's supporters, only to die in their throats as the smoke cleared. Mira stood 3 meters closer to Balor than she had been before, her jumpsuit now in tatters, her exposed skin showing burns and contusions, but her posture unbowed. A thin trickle of blood ran from the corner of her mouth, which she wiped away with the back of her hand. "My turn," she said softly. Before Balor could react, she closed the remaining distance between them with that same unhurried step that somehow covered ground faster than seemed possible. She reached up, a simple, almost gentle motion, and grasped Balor by the throat, her fingers finding purchase between the armor plates protecting his neck. The arena fell silent. 1.5 million spectators held their breath collectively. With a quick, precise movement that betrayed no strain or effort, Mira twisted her wrist. The crack of Balor's spine breaking echoed throughout the silent arena, amplified by the audio systems that had been designed to enhance the drama of combat. Balor's massive body went limp instantly. His exoskeleton, suddenly without neural input from its wearer, locked into a rigid position as emergency protocols engaged. The yellow glow of his ocular implants flickered and dimmed. Mira released her grip, allowing the now paralyzed champion to topple backward onto the platform with a resounding crash. For 3 heartbeats, not a sound was heard throughout the entire arena. Then pandemonium erupted. Screams, shouts, gasps, and the chaotic beeping of a million betting interfaces paying out or collecting debts created a wall of noise. In the VIP section, Belfer had fainted. All 6 eyes rolled back in his head, while Ambassador Lanthos's facial tentacles had tied themselves into literal knots from shock. Crystal K's voice, for once bereft of its smooth professionalism, cracked as it announced, The match is concluded. Victory to Mira Kellen of Dust Frontier." In the control booth, the tournament director was frantically issuing orders. "Initiate emergency protocols. Medical team to the platform immediately, and prepare the equipment malfunction announcement." "Sir," the security chief said quietly, "there was no equipment malfunction. The human broke his spine with her bare hands. Every sensor and camera in the arena recorded it clearly." "I don't care," the director hissed. "We cannot allow the narrative that a baseline human from a backwater colony defeated the 3-time champion. The sponsorship implications alone would be catastrophic." Down on the platform, medical drones had surrounded Balor's immobile form, scanning and stabilizing while preparing him for emergency transport. Mira stood to the side, allowing them space to work, her expression neutral as she surveyed the chaos her simple action had unleashed. A tournament official cautiously approached her. "Contestant Kellen, you are required to remain on station for post-combat assessment and investigation." Mira glanced at the smoldering remains of her jumpsuit. "I'll need a replacement uniform first, and I should inform my supervisor that I'll be late returning to my maintenance shift." The official blinked rapidly, struggling to process that these mundane concerns were her priority after what had just occurred. Yes, of course. This way, please." As Mira was escorted from the platform, the screens above the arena displayed an official announcement. Technical difficulty during final combat. Tournament results, pending investigation. All betting outcomes, temporarily suspended. But it was too late. The recordings of what had happened were already spreading across the galactic information network faster than any censorship algorithm could contain them. The image of the unenhanced human female, standing unflinching through Balor's onslaught, then casually breaking his spine with a single hand movement, would become the most viewed recording in galactic history within the hour. In the aftermath chamber, Mira sat patiently as medical drones assessed her injuries. The burns from the plasma weapons were superficial, already beginning to heal. The contusions from the physical impacts were colorful, but not deep. By the standards of her daily work on Dust Frontier, they were minor inconveniences at most. A medical supervisor, a Morellian female with advanced diagnostic implants, reviewed the scans with obvious bewilderment. According to these readings, you should be dead several times over. Mira shrugged. I grew up on Dust Frontier. It builds resilience. Resilience? The Morellian's voice rose in pitch. You withstood forces that would pulverize military-grade armor. Your cellular density readings are off our established scales. Your bone structure shows signs of what appears to be natural metal integration. Side effect of the mineral content in Dust Frontier's water supply, Mira explained casually. Most long-term residents develop similar adaptations. It's why we don't need augmentation for environmental work. The Morellian stared at her in disbelief. This goes far beyond environmental adaptation. Your physiology is unprecedented. Mira accepted a replacement jumpsuit from a service drone and began to dress. Not among Dust Frontier residents. We're all like this to varying degrees. It's why the colony survives despite minimal support from the Galactic Alliance. Before the medical supervisor could respond, the door to the chamber slid open, revealing the tournament director, flanked by security personnel. His orange complexion had deepened to an alarming red. Contestant Kellen, he began, his voice strained with forced politeness. On behalf of the tournament committee, I must inform you that due to irregularities in today's combat, the final match has been declared null and void. A technical review will be conducted, and— No, Mira interrupted simply. The director blinked, his rehearsed speech derailed. I beg your pardon? I said no, Mira repeated, zipping up her new jumpsuit. I won the match according to tournament rules. Victory through incapacitation. The rules don't specify method. But you, the director sputtered. I defended myself against an opponent who declared his intention to dismantle me, piece by piece, for entertainment. Mira stated calmly. I did so with minimal force necessary to end the threat. If you wish to contest the outcome, I'm sure the Galactic Sports Commission would be interested in reviewing the full recording, including Balor's stated intention to kill me slowly for spectacle. The director's complexion shifted from red to a sickly yellow. The Galactic Sports Commission took a dim view of tournament administrators who attempted to manipulate official outcomes, especially when extensive betting had been involved. The penalties could include lifetime bans from sporting administration and substantial fines. Perhaps, he said carefully, we could come to a mutually beneficial arrangement. The tournament could acknowledge your victory, but frame it as a special exhibition match rather than an official championship bout. You would receive full winner's compensation, of course, plus a discretionary bonus for your cooperation in the narrative. Mira considered this for a moment. The winner's compensation and bonus transferred to my account immediately. Full medical coverage for any latent injuries for 5 standard years, and a lifetime exemption from any future tournament selection. The director's eyes widened at her unexpected negotiation skills. That's acceptable. And, Mira added, a formal acknowledgement in the official record that a representative of Dust Frontier won the combat legitimately. This was clearly the most difficult concession for the director, but after a moment's internal struggle, he nodded stiffly. Agreed. The documents will be prepared within the hour. Good, Mira said, standing. Now, if there's nothing else, I have a transport to catch. My maintenance shift starts in 12 hours, and I need to account for travel time. As she moved toward the door, the medical supervisor found her voice again. Wait, we have so many questions about your physiology. The scientific community would pay handsomely for the opportunity to study. No, Mira said firmly. Dust Frontier residents aren't laboratory specimens. We're Alliance citizens who adapted to survive where others couldn't. If the scientific community is interested in our physiological adaptations, they can apply through proper diplomatic channels and offer something of value to our colony in exchange. With that, she walked out, leaving the stunned officials behind. The journey from the Ares 9 combat station back to Dust Frontier took 11 hours aboard a commercial transport vessel. Mira spent most of it sleeping, her body efficiently repairing the minor damage it had sustained during the combat. The few other passengers gave her a wide berth, having recognized her from the now viral recordings of the match. As the transport approached Dust Frontier, Mira gazed out the viewport at her home. From orbit, the planet looked unremarkable, a brownish-tan sphere with minimal visible water and swirling dust storms obscuring much of the surface. To most galactic travelers, it was the definition of an undesirable destination, a harsh, resource-poor world with few amenities and many dangers. To Mira, it was simply home. The orbital maintenance station where she worked was a practical, no-frills facility that kept the colony's communications, weather monitoring, and defense systems operational. As she passed through the arrival security checkpoint, the station manager, Dr. Hammond, was waiting for her. Dr. Hammond was in his 60s, with a weathered face that had seen decades of Dust Frontier's harsh conditions. Like most long-term residents, his body had adapted: denser bones, more efficient oxygen use, slightly thickened skin resistant to the abrasive dust that gave the planet its name. But unlike Mira, he had been born off-world and had chosen to come here as a young medical professional seeking frontier experience. The adaptations had come slowly for him, and never to the degree that Mira, born and raised on the planet, displayed. "Quite a spectacle you caused, Kellen," he said by way of greeting, his gruff voice failing to hide a note of pride. "Not intentionally," she replied, as they walked together toward the staff quarters. "How bad is the fallout?" Dr. Hammond's bushy eyebrows rose. "Bad? We've received 17 diplomatic inquiries, 42 scientific expedition requests, and over 100 media transmission bids in the past 8 hours. The colony governor is having the time of his life negotiating terms." Mira winced. "I was afraid of that. I just wanted to complete the tournament obligation and get back to work." "Well, your little demonstration has put Dust Frontier on the galactic map in a way decades of official petitioning never managed." Dr. Hammond chuckled. "Suddenly, everyone is interested in the remarkable adaptive capabilities of Deathworld colonists. The governor's leveraging it into commitments for improved infrastructure, medical supplies, and educational resources." They reached Mira's quarters, a small but practical room with minimal decorations, save for a few holographs of Dust Frontier's rare but spectacular sunsets and a shelf of physical books, a luxury in the digital age. "Your shift doesn't actually start for another 6 hours," Dr. Hammond informed her. "I adjusted the schedule. Figured you might need some recovery time." Mira smiled slightly. "Thoughtful, but unnecessary. I'm fully functional." "Humor an old man who still thinks in off-worlder medical terms," he replied. "And perhaps use the time to prepare yourself. There's a communication waiting for you from the Galactic Alliance Scientific Council. They're particularly interested in how your bone density readings compare to standard human baselines." Mira sighed. "I'm not interested in becoming a research subject. No one's asking you to." Dr. Hammond assured her. "But your tournament performance has opened doors that were previously closed to our colony. A little scientific cooperation, on our terms, could benefit everyone here." After Dr. Hammond left, Mira showered and changed into fresh clothes, then sat on her bed, contemplating the unexpected turn her life had taken. What had begun as a bureaucratic error forcing her into a combat tournament had somehow transformed into a pivotal moment for her entire colony. She accessed her personal terminal and reviewed the communication from the Scientific Council. Their tone was respectful, almost reverential, as they requested her participation in a collaborative research initiative studying environmental adaptations in human populations. The proposed compensation was generous, with guarantees that all findings would be shared with Dust Frontier's medical facilities to benefit the colony. More importantly, they were offering something that had been denied to Dust Frontier for generations: recognition. Not as a primitive outpost clinging to survival on a hostile world, but as a community that had achieved something remarkable. Humans who had adapted to thrive where the Galactic Alliance's technology had predicted they would fail. Mira thought back to the moment in the arena when she had grasped Balor's neck. She hadn't intended to break his spine, merely to demonstrate that his technology and enhancements were not as superior as he believed. But in that moment of contact, she had felt the fragility beneath his armored exterior. For all his augmentations and weapons, he was still fundamentally vulnerable in ways that life on Dust Frontier had trained out of her people generations ago. It wasn't about physical strength. Though her muscles and bones had indeed densified beyond standard human norms due to the planet's 1.4G gravity. It wasn't about resilience to energy weapons, though the mineral-rich dust that permeated the atmosphere and integrated into their bodies provided some natural resistance. It was about adaptation, the fundamental human trait that technology had allowed other species to circumvent, but that Deathworld colonists had embraced by necessity. With a decisive gesture, Mira composed a response to the Scientific Council, setting clear boundaries for any research collaboration while expressing willingness to participate in studies that would benefit both her colony and broader scientific understanding. She then checked her financial accounts, confirming that the tournament winnings and bonus had indeed been transferred as agreed. The sum was substantial, enough to fund significant improvements to the colony's water reclamation systems, a project she had advocated for years. With a satisfied nod, she allocated the majority of the funds to the colony's infrastructure account, retaining only a modest amount for herself, enough to purchase some new books and perhaps a higher-quality environmental suit for her maintenance work. 5 hours later, Mira reported for her scheduled maintenance shift, ignoring the whispers and stares from colleagues who had seen the tournament recordings. She collected her tools, checked the work orders, and proceeded to her first task, repairing a malfunctioning atmospheric filter on the station's outer hull. As she worked, floating in space with only a tether and her environmental suit between her and the void, Dust Frontier rotated slowly beneath her. From this vantage point, she could see one of the massive dust storms that regularly swept across the planet's surface, a swirling tan cloud that could strip unprotected skin from bone and choke unfiltered lungs in minutes. To most of the galaxy, it was a vision of hell. To Mira, it was the force that had shaped her people into what they had become: adaptable, resilient, and far stronger than anyone had imagined possible. She tightened the last bolt on the repaired filter housing and allowed herself a moment of contemplation before moving to the next task. The galaxy would never look at Deathworlders the same way again. The technologies and enhancements that the Galactic Alliance had always relied upon as markers of superiority had been revealed as the crutches they truly were. Impressive, but ultimately no match for the natural adaptations forged through generations of survival in hostile environments. Mira smiled slightly as she propelled herself toward the next repair site. Let them study, analyze, and attempt to understand. The true lesson of Dust Frontier couldn't be replicated in a laboratory or engineered into an exoskeleton. It was written in the very cells of its people, a testament to the remarkable ability of life, not merely to survive adversity, but to be transformed by it into something stronger. In the days that followed, the story of the Deathworlder who broke the champion spread throughout the Galactic Alliance. Historians would later mark it as a turning point in how the Alliance viewed its frontier colonies and their inhabitants, not as primitive outposts clinging to existence, but as incubators of human potential that technology alone could never match. For Mira Kellen, however, life continued much as before. There were atmospheric filters to repair, communication arrays to maintain, and the endless, vital work of keeping the systems running that allowed life to continue on the harsh world she called home. The tournament and its aftermath were simply another shift completed, another task checked off her duty roster. As she had told Balor in those final moments before ending the match, she was just there to complete the job and get back to work. In the vastness of the Galactic Alliance, with its gleaming technologies and augmented beings, that simple truth had proven to be the most powerful weapon of all. The next tournament season, applications from Deathworld colonies across the Alliance increased by 7,000%. The tournament committee, after much deliberation, created a separate division for unaugmented competitors, partly out of respect, partly out of fear. They called it the Frontier Division, but the competitors had their own name for it, the Deathworlders game. And as they gathered for their first matches, many wore simple gray utility jumpsuits in honor of the maintenance technician who had changed everything with a single, unhurried step forward. On Dust Frontier, watching the broadcast from the newly improved communications array she had helped install, Mira Kellen shook her head in amusement before returning to her maintenance checklist. There was always more work to be done, and that, not the adulation of the galaxy, was what truly mattered in the end.